reaction.
It's good to me.
Yeah, we're talking all things Italian football today, pulling from the Daily Serie A report, fresh off the press, Tuesday, April 1st.
Okay.
Got match results, standings are shifting, big games coming up.
Yeah.
As always, we're going to try to cut through the noise and give you guys the real story of what's happening in the league.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so right off the bat, this report, it just screams volatility. You can really feel how quickly things can change in Serie A.
It's a tight league.
Absolutely. So let's start with Lazio versus Torino.
Okay.
A 1-1 draw at home for Lazio.
Not a good result,
Yeah, the report really doesn't sugarcoat it, calling it a straight-up setback.
especially at home.
Exactly, and it wasn't even, like they were tired from a midweek European game or facing some unmeetable opponent.
Right.
It's Torino.
Yeah.
Adam Maruzic scored a beautiful goal, though, his fourth of the season. But then, late in the game, they let the lead slip, conceding to Torino's Gnidis.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, for those of you following the tight battles at the top of the table, that late goal is a real heartbreaker for Lazio.
It is, and the report, it kind of points out that Gnidis, he seems to have a knack for these crucial moments.
Does he?
Yeah, they mentioned his late goals against Fiorentina and AC Milan earlier this season.
Oh, wow.
So he's proving to be a player who can really swing those tight games.
Interesting.
And, that dropped 2 points for Lazio. Well, it means that Roma have now caught up with them in the standings.
You're kidding?
Nope, level on points.
It's amazing when you think back just 3 months after the derby. Roma were 15 points behind.
15.
Yeah, the report talks about a profound change in momentum.
Huge swing.
And they even suggest that maybe, just maybe, Lazio's focus should be on the Europa League instead.
That's interesting.
Yeah, for those of you considering their season trajectory,
Yep.
that's a pretty big shift in the conversation about their ambitions.
It really is. I mean, do they go all in on trying to climb the Serie A table?
Yeah.
Or do they say, okay, let's prioritize Europe and go for a deep run there, which could, mean Champions League qualification next season?
Right.
It's a tough decision.
All right, so moving on, there's a bit of a trend in this round of matches. Not a lot of goals.
Really?
Only 17 across all the games, which makes you wonder if maybe there's some fatigue setting in as the season goes on.
Could be.
So we have Verona against Parma, ending in a 0-0 draw.
Good.
Pretty much what everyone expected. The report calls it uneventful.
Makes sense.
Yeah, two teams near the relegation zone, probably not wanting to risk too much.
Yeah.
Apparently the highlight was a shot from Verona's Mosquera that hit the bar.
Oh, so close.
That's about as exciting as it got.
This kind of brings up a point about the scheduling, how the matches are spread out over the weekend.
Does it?
Yeah, the report sort of suggests that teams playing later in the weekend, they might be playing more cautiously.
Why is that?
Well, they can see the results from the earlier games.
No.
So they might adjust their approach depending on what's already happened.
Interesting.
And it does raise questions about whether it's entirely fair, this fragmented match day.
Right.
Does that unintentionally influence how teams play?
Yeah, and the report seems a little concerned about that,
We do.
suggesting that it hasn't always been ideal, these situations where the schedule might be dictating a team's tactics.
I see what they mean.
Yeah, and for those of you who really follow the ins and outs of the league,
Yeah.
it's a valid point to consider these potential unintended consequences of having games spread out like this.
It does make you think about the competitive balance,
Definitely.
especially for those teams who don't have as much to play for.
Right.
The incentive to go for a win, it might be less if they see the results from earlier games and think, well, maybe a draw is good enough.
Makes sense. Now, on a brighter note, Cagliari really came through in a big way.
Did they?
Yeah, the report calls it the match they couldn't fail to win.
High stakes.
Yeah, a direct clash with Monza in the relegation battle.
Oh, wow.
And despite Monza starting strong, Cagliari took control and ended up winning 3-0.
We win.
Goals from Viola, Gaetano, and Lavumbo.
Nice.
The report even credits their coach, Nicola, with having a real impact on their chances of staying up.
Makes a difference. A good coach.
Yeah, and for those of you tracking the relegation fight, that's a massive 3 points for Cagliari.
Absolutely. And in these relegation battles, those head-to-head wins, they're so important.
How so?
Well, obviously the points are huge, but it's also the psychological impact.
Right.
You beat a direct rival. It gives you a big boost in confidence.
Makes sense. Now, on the flip side, Lecce are really struggling.
Yeah, I saw they lost again.
5th defeat in a row. And the report says their loss to Roma, it's rather annoying psychologically. Because apparently they showed glimpses of good play, created chances, but then in the last 25 minutes, they just fell apart.
Classic Lecce.
Yeah, Krstovic is the only player who scored for them in their last 7 games. And the report really points out their defensive weaknesses under their coach, Marco Giampaolo.
Sounds like a team in desperate need of answers.
They do.
Lacking that killer instinct in attack, and then just can't hold it together defensively when it matters most.
Yeah, that kind of fragility can be really damaging.
Absolutely, for morale, for their chances of staying up.
It all adds up. Okay, we also had Como drawing 1-1 with Empoli.
Okay.
A game Empoli probably feel they should have won. They hit the woodwork twice, missed a late chance.
Unlucky.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the report mentions how Como seemed pretty relaxed about their results, their league position.
I do.
But then you get these surprisingly critical comments from Cesc Fabregas, their player, about his teammates lacking humility.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for those of you who enjoy the behind-the-scenes drama,
Always juicy.
it kind of hints that there might be more going on at Como than we see on the surface.
It does. You know, Fabregas, even though they're relatively safe in the table, he's still calling out his own players.
Yeah.
Maybe he wants to maintain high standards, prevent complacency.
Yeah, maybe. And then the report throws in a little bit of fun, wondering if Hollywood stars might start showing up at Como games now that the weather's getting nicer.
Well, Como's a beautiful place.
It is.
Can't blame him.
Okay, moving on. Bologna kept their good run going with a win against Venezia.
They did.
Although the report doesn't give the specific scoreline.
Okay.
Apparently Venezia lost another close game, and Bologna's goalkeeper, Skorupski, had a great game.
He's been solid all season.
Yeah, consistently excellent for Bologna.
It is a worry for Venezia, though, losing all these tight matches.
It is. Those dropped points can really come back to haunt you.
Especially at this stage of the season.
Exactly. And that leads us nicely to a huge upcoming fixture. Lecce versus Venezia.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
The report says this game is worth a good chunk of hope or fear for both teams.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, they're both fighting for survival, and this game could be a turning point.
Absolutely. Those direct clashes between relegation rivals, they often decide who stays up and who goes down.
Right. The pressure is immense.
And a win can be such a psychological boost, while a loss can be devastating.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. Okay, let's shift gears and look at the top of the table.
Sounds good.
There's a massive clash coming up. Roma versus Juventus.
Can't wait for that one.
The report points out that if Roma win, they'll be level on points with Juventus.
Wow.
And even more importantly, they'll go above them in the table because of their head-to-head record.
That's crucial.
But here's the kicker. Juventus have been hit with a big injury blow.
What happened?
Their defender, Gotti, is out for a month with a fractured fibula.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the report even explains that the diaphysis is the central part of the bone.
Thanks for the anatomy lesson.
You're welcome.
So how does that affect their lineup?
Well, it leaves them with only 3 available defenders for their 3-4-2-1 formation under their coach, Tudor.
That's a problem.
Yeah, for those of you who analyze tactics, this defensive shortage could really force Juventus to change their approach.
They have to. They can't play their usual system with only 3 defenders.
Exactly. The report also talks about the remaining schedules for the top teams.
Okay.
It's always tricky to predict these things.
Yeah, anything can happen.
But they suggest that Juventus might actually have a slightly easier run-in compared to Roma and Bologna.
Interesting.
They also mention Fiorentina's strong form lately.
They have been playing well.
Yeah, and their good head-to-head records against some of the other contenders.
So they could be a dark horse in this race.
They could. It sounds like the battle for those Champions League spots is going to go right down to the wire.
It's going to be an exciting finish.
Absolutely. And speaking of exciting, the upcoming match day is packed with huge games.
Let's hear it.
Milan versus Fiorentina.
Okay.
Atalanta versus Lazio.
Big one.
Roma versus Juventus, which we just talked about.
Yep.
And Bologna versus Napoli.
Wow, that's a great lineup.
You really couldn't ask for more big implications at both ends of the table.
For sure. A weekend of high-stakes football.
Exactly. And finally, the report shifts focus to the Coppa Italia.
Okay.
It's the first leg of the semifinal tonight, Empoli versus Bologna.
Interesting matchup.
Yeah, this is a big deal for both clubs.
How come?
Apparently, Empoli rarely gets this far in the competition.
Right.
And Bologna haven't been in a semifinal of any kind for 25 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
The report even mentions their previous unsuccessful semifinal appearances in the Coppa Italia and UEFA Cup way back when.
A bit of history for the fans.
Exactly, and there's a lot of uncertainty about who's going to play for both teams.
How so?
Bologna might rest some key players like Skorupski.
Makes sense, with a big league game coming up.
And Empoli might rotate their squad as well, with that crucial match against Cagliari on the horizon.
They need to be careful.
Yeah, but it could give some of their younger players a chance to shine.
Like who?
They mentioned Konate specifically.
Oh, yeah, I've heard good things about him. Yeah, he's one to watch.
So the Coppa Italia, it's a chance for both teams to make a statement.
It is. For Empoli, it's a chance to maybe make history.
Yep.
And for Bologna, it's a chance to finally break that semifinal curse and maybe even win a trophy.
It would be a great reward for their good form this season.
Definitely. Okay, so to wrap it all up, this deep dive into the Daily Serie A report shows us a league that's full of tight battles and surprises.
It's been a crazy season.
It has. We've seen Lazio falter, Roma come out of nowhere, Juventus hit by a key injury, and some real drama at the bottom of the table.
And it's not over yet.
Not by a long shot.
There are still so many twists and turns to come.
Exactly. And for you, the listener, understanding all of this gives you a really valuable snapshot of what's happening in Italian football right now.
Whether you support a specific team,
Yep.
or you just enjoy the overall story of the league.
These insights should give you a much clearer picture of the current state of play.
It's all connected. You know, the individual results, the injuries, even the schedule.
It all adds up. And it all contributes to the bigger picture.
So here's a final thought for you to consider. Given how much fixture congestion and the sometimes weird scheduling can impact team performance and the choices managers make, how might this be affecting the overall fairness and competitiveness of Serie A as we head towards the end of the season?
It's a good question.
Are the benefits for broadcasters, you know, having games spread out over the weekend,
Right.
are those benefits maybe outweighing any potential harm to the integrity of the competition?
That's something for the fans to think about.
It is something to ponder.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
We'll be back soon with more Serie A analysis.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, ciao.